What's up, guys? Stick with SGN back with another top 5 list, and this time I'm going to be talking about the top 5 greatest mixed martial artists of all time. And I already filmed this video about 2 weeks ago, but I lost the audio, and the list is actually a little bit different this time. You know, in the first video I did, I had Fedor Emelianenko at number 5, and I decided to change that now because I was looking at his record, I was really thinking about it, and really as soon as I filmed the video, I was just thinking to myself, you know, I don't think Fedor actually is the number 5. Because as good as he was in Japan, he beat some great guys like Mirko Cro Cop. He beat some really tough guys, you know, Big Nog, all those guys. But realistically, his record has a lot of bums on there. So it's good and all, but I don't know. As soon as he got to America, he started getting knocked the fuck out by guys like Dan Henderson. He got submitted by Fabricio Verdum. He got beat down by Bigfoot Silva. He got, in my opinion, beat down by Fabio Maldonado. I'm pretty sure just about everybody thinks that Fabio actually won that fight, but being in Russia, they of course gave it to Fedor. But regardless, you know, as soon as he got to the United States, or when he started fighting in a place where he wasn't favored and stuff like that, then I don't know. I think that some things changed, and I'm not going to say he's not a great fighter. He definitely is one of the greatest of all time, but is he in the top 5? I'm going to say no. At number 5, I do have Demetrius Johnson, who was, of course, number 6 on the previous list. And the reason I have Demetrius Johnson there is because, yes, he's been fighting in a weight class that doesn't get a lot of respect because they are small guys with not a lot of power. And a lot of those guys simply aren't on the same level as the guys you would see on the lightweight division or all the way up to heavyweight in a lot of ways. But of course, Demetrius Johnson has done things that nobody else has done. Whether it's defending his title or record, I think it was 12 times in a row, beating Anderson Silva's record, or the fact that he is pretty much perfect in every single aspect of mixed martial arts. You can't sit there and deny it. This guy definitely deserves to be among the Mount Rushmore of mixed martial artists. I mean, he's truly elite, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, striking, the clinch. He can mix everything in there perfectly as well. He doesn't get hit that much. He's a very smart fighter, but he can also be very aggressive. He can literally do it all. And the things that he's done has simply been unmatched in a lot of ways. Of course, he hasn't been fighting the same competition as guys like Jon Jones or GSP, but still, you know, the things that he's done, they can't be undervalued. And realistically, when you have a record like that with the most consecutive title defenses of all time, you kind of have to be given the respect that you deserve. And I definitely think that Demetrius Johnson is well deserving of number 5. Is he going to be there forever? I don't know. But one thing that does kind of put him a little bit lower on this list is the fact that he did just recently lose to Henry Cejudo. But I think that if they fight one more time and have the trilogy, I do think that Demetrius Johnson will win that fight. Because if you win that fight, it looked like he got hurt very early on. He was saying, I can't remember exactly what it was, like he broke his, maybe he had like a big issue with his leg and he broke something else. I think I remember, maybe he broke his leg and hurt something else. I know he's in a cast right now and he is recovering, so who knows when he's going to come back. But regardless, that he was pretty compromised in that fight because you could definitely tell that wasn't the usual Demetrius Johnson we see. So I think that if they do have the trilogy, Demetrius Johnson will beat him. I don't know if it'll be very decisive. I don't know if he'll put him to sleep, if he'll submit him. I don't know. But I do think that Demetrius Johnson would, without a doubt, win that and really cement himself once again as the greatest 125er to ever live. And I don't think anybody's really going to ever match that. Like, Henry Cejudo might go on a monster run, but realistically just lost to Joseph Benavidez as well, who Demetrius Johnson destroyed twice. So I don't think that Henry Cejudo is the right guy to really be able to match Demetrius Johnson moving forward because he's not even that young, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he's not in his early 20s, so he shouldn't be reaching Demetrius Johnson levels, mostly because he has to beat Demetrius Johnson once again. So I just think that's going to happen. I definitely think that Demetrius Johnson will come back better than ever, really, and cement himself once again as the greatest 125er to ever live and one of the greatest fighters to ever live. And at number 4, this might come as a little bit of a shock because he's kind of low. It is Anderson the Spider Silva. All right, and in the last video, I did the whole Anderson the Spider Silva thing. But I didn't want to do it this time, but I did it anyway. Was it necessary? Probably not. But regardless, it just happened, and it is what it is. So Anderson Silva, of course, we all know he's a great fighter. And when he was at his peak, he was pretty much the greatest to ever live. Like, if you look at what he's done, like when he was in his peak, the way he was able to put people to sleep and just use this incredible movement, his footwork, his head movement, the way he was able to pretty much bait people in, hit them with a jab and stun them because they were so off balance. It was really just some of the most incredible things I've ever seen in all sports. You know, whether it be whatever sport you're talking about, Anderson Silva in his prime, going against Forrest Griffin, going against Chris Lieben, going against Stephan Bonner, going against Vitor Belfort, really. These are all fights in which we really witnessed greatness. We really understood what elite level striking can be in mixed martial arts. And Anderson Silva embodied that because he was also extremely respectful. He was just, everything about Anderson Silva speaks greatness. And of course, unfortunately, now so many things have gone against him. And so whether it be his leg breaking against Chris Weidman, of course, getting knocked out by Chris Weidman, while playing around, which is what Anderson Silva does. So the complaints about that I kind of get, but I also don't get. That's what he does. So I don't really blame him for that particular situation. However, the leg break was definitely very unfortunate. And from there, of course, he's been caught multiple times for taking illegal substances. I think it's been 3 now, and I think at least twice was definitely anabolic steroids. So it's just it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate because we don't know, because there was no testing really until recently, whether or not he was already taking steroids or taking illegal substances, whatever you want to call them in general, before his leg break. Because in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if he started taking those steroids because he was having a lot of confidence issues after the leg break. When you have something like that, I've never had something similar, but I can only imagine when you pretty much spend your entire life leg kicking people, all of a sudden you do it and your leg snaps in half. You're probably gonna have a lot of confidence issues, not just walking around like a lot of people might have, but throwing that same kick at people, especially when kicks are such a big part of your game. Because whether you're kicking somebody's shin, by accident of course, or whether you're kicking them in the thigh, you're kicking them in the arm and they block with their elbow, you're going to be having a lot of problems with that leg later on. So it's definitely a big pain in the ass. You saw Conor McGregor after he leg kicked the shit out of Nate Diaz for a while. You really saw the damage that he took. So it's no joke when you throw leg kicks. So I can imagine a lot of confidence issues there for Anderson Silva. So the question is, was he taking steroids before the leg break or only afterwards? We can't really know, and that's a big issue. And it's not like he's only been caught once or twice and they've been kind of proven to not really be actual steroid use. He's actually been busted and been proven suspended big time a few times now. So I have to give him credit for the amazing performance he's put on through his career, and I do have to give him credit for just being one of the best fighters of all time. However, the whole steroid use does kind of push him down a little bit more. If not, he probably would be at least 3rd, if not maybe even 2nd, but for now, he has to be number 4. Number 3, we have Daniel DC Cormier, and this guy, honestly, he wasn't going to be in my greatest of all time list until he beat Stipe Miocic. It's great to beat Alexander Gustafsson, who's a phenomenal fighter. He beat Anthony Rumble Johnson twice, who's a phenomenal fighter as well. He had a relatively close fight against Jon Jones in the first one. Of course, the second one he got knocked out brutally, but still, he's had some amazing wins. Apart from the whole Jon Jones thing, he's had some amazing wins. And of course, when he went over there to fight Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title, becoming a 2-weight champion, it's just, honestly, that was it. That sealed the deal for me, because he didn't go out there and beat somebody say, let's just name somebody who's kind of trash, Stefan Struve. He didn't go up there and fight Stefan Struve, who's a guy who wins 1, loses 2, gets his ass beat by guys who probably she shouldn't be losing to. He's the only giant in the world in mixed martial arts who is has 8-inch reach advantage over somebody and is still unable to utilize a jab in any effective fashion. It's not like DC went up there and beat him. He went up there and beat the heavyweight champ. He went up there and beat arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time, because he has the most UFC heavyweight title defenses. So he didn't go out there and beat a bum. He beat literally the best heavyweight in UFC history. And of course, there is the debate that maybe Cain Velasquez in his prime was better than Stipe Miocic, but he never defended his title 3 times, whereas Stipe has beaten Alistair Overeem. He beat Junior Dos Santos. Who else did he beat? I'm having a blank right now. He beat Francis Ngannou. He took the title from Fabricio Verdum, who was on a great run. So he has beat some really, really elite guys. And of course, he was having a pretty good fight against DC before he got caught. So if you have a rematch, you never know. Stipe might actually go out there and win that fight. So DC beat a very, very, very good fighter, one of the best of all time in the heavyweight division. So he has to be given a lot of credit for that. And of course, Daniel Cormier is going to fight Brock Lesnar next. If he does, I think that's kind of trash. I'm not really looking forward to that, because I think that Brock Lesnar's kind of a bum compared to him. Let's just be honest. In his prime, Brock Lesnar only had a lot of size. He had really good wrestling, of course, but Cain Velasquez kind of exposed him. And Daniel Cormier is pretty much just a shorter version of Cain Velasquez, who actually has better wrestling. So I don't see what Brock Lesnar is really going to be able to do, especially having been gone for so long. Whereas DC, even though he's older, he's pretty much still in his prime. In terms of mixed martial arts, I don't think he's ever really been better. So Brock Lesnar, I don't think he's going to do anything. The fights that I want to see are Jon Jones rematch or Alexander Gustafsson rematch, or a rematch against Stipe Miocic. I think those are the fights to really do. Brock Lesnar kind of just piss off, but it's going to happen because DC, obviously, having had such a storied career, whether it be wrestling or in actual mixed martial arts, he deserves a big fight since Jon Jones is out to really be able to make that money and retire being a very, very rich man. I think Brock Lesnar is definitely the fight that he deserves, even though it's not really the fight that the fans probably want to see. but it is the fight's probably going to happen. So if Brock Lesnar can get rid of the steroids issues, then without a doubt he will be having the fight. So Daniel Cormier, of course, is probably going to beat Brock Lesnar. That's going to be a very, very big feather in his cap because Brock Lesnar, whether or not he's an elite fighter, he's without a doubt a giant name. So that could really push DC to new heights in terms of publicity and really become a bigger commercial success. So we'll see what happens if that fight does happen. But regardless, I think that Daniel Cormier, having beaten, like I said, guys like Alexander Gustafsson, having beaten Stipe Miocic, having beaten Rumble Johnson twice, having had a relatively close fight against Jon Jones once, having beaten Dan Henderson, having beaten Josh Barnett in winning the Strikeforce Grand Prix, having beaten so many elite level tough guys, he has absolutely earned himself that spot. He's undefeated at heavyweight, having gone to the UFC, taking on guys like Big Country when he was a very dangerous guy. He fought the elite fighters in the heavyweight division, and he went undefeated. And then the only guy that's ever been able to beat him is Jon Jones, who is arguably the greatest fighter of all time. We're going to see if I have him at number 1 or number 2 in this list, but without a doubt, he is one of, if not the very best, of all time. So there's no shame in losing to Jon Jones. And of course, there are the steroids accusations. So if Jon Jones was indeed on illegal substances, like, actually doing it on purpose, then DC arguably could get those two results to overturn. Of course, the first one, he was only caught for cocaine, so that one will stick. But the second one, there's always going to be that asterisk above that win. So DC does have that to his favor, and if they fight one more time, and if DC can somehow beat Jon Jones, then without a doubt, he might actually go up to number 1. So one hell of a fighter. Daniel Cormier absolutely deserves to be in the Mount Rushmore of MMA, especially because not only is he a phenomenal fighter, but he is also, in my opinion, probably the greatest UFC champion of all time. Not in terms of what he's done in the cage necessarily, but in terms of the man he is outside the cage. There is nobody nicer than DC. There is nobody who is more entertaining than DC when it comes to being on the mic as well, because him and Joe Rogan are the two greatest commentators in sports, in my opinion. When I listen to commentators, when I'm watching NBA games, when I'm watching soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, when I'm watching any sport, there isn't a single combination of commentators that are as fun as Daniel Cormier and Joe Rogan. So Daniel Cormier has a great career ahead of him as a commentator as well, and he's also, like I said, a great man, a great human being. You can tell that he really cares about people. He's a great human being, and overall, I think he is probably the greatest champion in mixed martial arts history, just in terms of a humanitarian point of view. At number 2, I have George Rush St Pierre, and that's it. I had to put him at number 2. And in the last one, when I did this video before, I actually had him number 1 because the Jon Jones thing was. It wasn't like recent or anything like that, but it was kind of weighing in on me a little bit more than it is right now, because it looks very, very likely that Jon Jones is actually be coming back to the octagon probably at the end of the year. There's been a lot of talks about him coming back for the New Year card, and if that does happen, then that's pretty much just proof once again that he's not really 100% guilty. And of course, Jeff Nowitzki, who is the leader of athlete relations between the UFC and of course the fighters, and of course he is the guy who caught Lance Armstrong, so he has a deep history in terms of researching steroid use and catching a lot of people for illegal substances. And he has gone on the Joe Rogan podcast himself and said that in his opinion, everything leads to Jon Jones not being intentionally guilty. He probably did something stupid, got an illegal substance, traces of illegal substances in his supplements, and that kind of cost him once again. So Jon Jones definitely deserves to be suspended for being an idiot, but is he a steroid user and a cheater? According to Jeff Nowitzki, he isn't, and I honestly believe the guy because everything he's said so far has pretty much come true, and it's always pretty much been believable. So why not believe him in this case? So I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I am going to have Jon Jones at number 1. I will have GSP at number 2, and realistically, they're pretty much neck and neck. I think the thing that really gives Jon Jones the edge is the competition he's faced, and I will talk about that a little bit later on. However, George St Pierre has gone through the ringer at welterweight. Of course, he did lose to Matt Serra, but that was kind of a fluke because Matt Serra caught him when GSP wasn't being very careful. That was supreme intelligent GSP. That was when he was still a bit more rash. He was still pretty young. He would kind of just go out there and try to finish you, whereas nowadays, of course, he's a lot more intelligent, and that was kind of the main trait of the rest of his career. However, he also did lose to Matt Hughes once, but of course he was still very young there as well. It was his very first title fight, and I think that the moment just got to him. You can actually tell he was actually having a hard time even looking at Matt Hughes before the fight actually started. So that just kind of shows that he was kind of mentally kind of broken before the fight even started. He was so intimidating. It showed him way too much respect, and that really cost him. But moving forward, we saw him beat guys like Carlos Condit. He beat Nick Diaz, who in my opinion is extremely overrated, but he's still a very, very solid win. He beat guys like Jake Shields. He beat Josh Koscheck, I think twice maybe. He beat, who else did he beat? He beat John Fitch. He beat, of course, Michael Bisping later on, and that's really what secured the number 1 spot for me in that latest video, in the previous time I filmed this video. But then I was just thinking to myself, like the whole Jon Jones thing, And as good as Michael Bisping is, like, of course he was the middleweight champion, and it was a very, very big deal for GSP to come back after so many years off and go out there and immediately in his very first fight back, take the middleweight title from a guy like Michael Bisping, who, whether you think he's elite or not, I don't really think he is. I think he's a very good fighter, but he's not really elite. However, he was consistently fighting on a very regular basis. He was always active, and you can't really take that away from the guy. You know, he was the champ. He knocked out Luke Rockhold. It may have been a fluke, but it doesn't really matter. He still knocked out Luke Rockhold. So he does deserve a lot of respect for that. So GSP came back and he won the middleweight championship. And that really does earn him a hell of a lot of credit. And realistically, like, apart from, of course, the Matt Hughes loss and the Matt Serra loss, and I guess the Johnny Hendricks situation where realistically I think he lost that fight, but the judges still gave it to him. I can't really think of a time that I've seen GSP look really vulnerable. Like, he has pretty much always looked like an absolute god. So I can't really put him anywhere other than number 2 or number 1. And I just think that Jon Jones is better. And I'm going to go ahead and explain to you, of course, number 1 is Jon Jones. I'm going to go ahead and explain to you why I do think he is the very best. And that's because, like I said, I think that from a purely competition point of view, he has beaten the tougher guys. And of course, like I said, GSP has beaten some truly elite fighters such as Carlos Condit. However, you look at Jon Jones, he beat Daniel Cormier twice, and you can put that asterisk above his head as much as you want for that knockout, but it does not matter. He still head kicked DC, threw him on the ground, and was battering him with elbows and everything in the fucking book. So regardless, what you want to say, Jon Jones dismantled DC in that second fight. It does not matter whether it was tainted supplements or whatever. He still beat down Daniel Cormier, who is, without a doubt, one of the top 3 or 4 greatest fighters of all time. So Jon Jones absolutely deserves that, because as good as GSP's record is, he never once went over there and fought a truly GOAT-level fighter, whereas Jon Jones did. Jon Jones beat a lot of guys that Anderson Silva beat as well. He beat, of course, Stephan Bonner. He beat Vitor Belfort. So Jon Jones did beat a lot of guys that Anderson Silva beat, which, of course, Anderson Silva, and I forgot to mention this, one of the reasons I have Anderson Silva as kind of low is because the level of competition that he fought wasn't on the same level as, say, GSP, Daniel Cormier, and Jon Jones. You know, Jon Jones beat Dan Henderson, who was they actually never fought. Jesus Christ. You know, Jon Jones beat Chael Sonnen. He beat, he beat Glover Teixeira. You know, he beat so many great fighters. And realistically, like, there's no doubt about it that Jon Jones, in my opinion, is the number 1 guy. There's just no doubt about it. At least you can't deny that from a talent point of view, there has never been a mixed martial artist with more talent than Jon Jones. Never. And if he can come back, and I do 100% fully believe that he will be coming back, because he's still like only 30 years old, so he's still very young. He still has at least 4 or 5 years of his prime left in him. Of course, the cocaine may kick in and maybe kind of reduce that a little bit, but I doubt it. You know, he's an absolute beast. He's a physically gifted man. So I think he's going to come out there. He's going to come back, possibly even fight Daniel Cormier one more time, because DC wants that fight if Jon Jones can come back early enough. Of course, we know Jon Jones wants to fight. He just said that he wants to fight him 2 more times, which I think that's a bit exaggerating. That's kind of a bit harsh for DC, but I do think that's probably would be fair. I would like to see that fight happen even a couple more times, realistically, because they are the 2 greatest fighters in the world, really, when it comes to light heavyweights and heavyweights. They're just the 2 elite guys, and arguably they're the 2 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world right now. So I definitely wouldn't be complaining about that. Of course, and that Jon Jones would definitely dismantle Brock Lesnar. I think that he would go out there and he'd have a very, very solid chance of beating Stipe Miocic. I think he would beat down Cain Velasquez as well. So I just think that Jon Jones, realistically, no matter what he does, whether he comes back to light heavyweight, whether he goes up with the heavyweight, whether he does both, without a doubt, he's going to go out there, he's still going to be dominating every single person he faces, and without a doubt, he's still going to go down in history as the greatest of all time. It's just a matter of how many more times he's going to make mistakes. Because realistically, the only person on this earth that can beat Jon Jones right now is himself, and he has consistently been able to defeat himself, whether it's actually beating the part of him that's trying to sabotage everything, or whether it's the part that's trying to sabotage everything actually defeating the real Jon Jones. So we're going to see what happens with his future. But as of right now, regardless, I do have Jon Jones as the number 1. That's what I believe. That's just my opinion. You might disagree with me, and that's why I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below who you think is the greatest of all time, and what do you think of my top 5 list? Who would you take out? Who would you put in? And who would you move around? Let me know all these things in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and please share the video. That's very helpful, and thank you to anybody who does do that. As always, thank you so much in particular to all my subscribers. And before I end out the video, I want to say once again, I do apologize for not putting out any videos over the past couple of weeks. I've been having a rough time a little bit. I haven't really been motivated. There was a death in the family, so I decided to just take a little bit of a break, a week and a half, 2 weeks off. But now I'm back to being motivated, hungry, and hopefully with your guys' help and me putting out a lot more content, this channel can grow. Because right now, things aren't going great. I'm not going to lie. So hopefully that will change. We will improve. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.